Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Ed Collab Gathering session number 11, Inquiry for the Youngest Learners, Genius Hour in K-2 Classrooms. With us today are Mary Alicia Lyons and Tammy Jurals. Mary currently works as a K-2 literacy coach at Morris Grove Elementary School in Chapel Hill, North Carolina, and is a fellow with the North Carolina Teacher Voice Fellowship. Tammy is currently a first grade teacher at Morris Grove Elementary School and is a science enthusiast. She spent 3 summers as an assistant director for the North Carolina Museum of Life and Science's Summer Science Camp. We are so lucky to have both Mary and Tammy here today presenting about something that is super close to my own heart. So without further ado, I will take it away and have Mary, Alicia, and Tammy begin.
Hello, everyone.
Good morning.
We are so glad to be here this afternoon to chat with you guys about Genius Hour. I wanted to start with just sharing a little bit about what Genius Hour is for anybody who's new to this topic. Genius Hour originated actually out of the business world. There were companies like Google that sometimes gave their employees what they called 20% time, which was a time that employees could look at and study things they were interested in and do projects of their own interest, and with the hope that maybe new original ideas would come out of that work. And that has hopped into the education world as a concept where we set aside time each week to ensure that we give kids a chance to explore their passions and their wonders and their interests that we might or might not cover in the regular curriculum in the regular day, and allow them to do inquiry learning. Sometimes it's called passion workshop, passion projects, wonder time, wonder workshop, can go by different names. We use Genius Hour. That's what it originated as. And so we're going to talk today about what we've done in some of our classrooms at our school for our youngest kids, because when we got interested in this, we were discovering that more of the information out there that you could find about Genius Hour really was centered around upper elementary, middle schools, high schools, and we weren't finding as much information or models for how to do this work down with little kids. So we did a lot of research, read some texts, and I also went and visited a fabulous teacher in Wake County named Renee White, she's on Twitter at Rah Penguin, who is also doing Genius Hour with first graders, and did a lot of studying and mulling things over about how to make this work and how to implement it. And what we're going to share today is an outgrowth of that work.
Right. And we decided that for first grade, we would start with a series of readings on literature books that dealt with growth mindset. With the first grade, my colleague and I would have our 4th grade reading buddies, come and visit our classroom and read books each week that taught lessons on perseverance and determination, and so that the students got the idea that if they had trouble with their research, that they would keep moving forward and trying different things. Those 4th grade buddies were trained by Mary Alicia, who would go and prompt the kids about how to have these discussions with our first graders. A bookmark was designed to help our 4th graders with questions to follow up with the first graders at the end of each book, so that they could have those discussions. Sometimes it meant so much more coming from the older kids that the students looked up to. So we also used Kid President on YouTube, so that the students had a chance to continue that idea of the growth mindset, that even if it's hard now, I can continue to work through this. And then the students at the end of those readings made a list of all of the things that they had learned from those readings with their 4th grade buddies. about never giving up, to try something new, make the world a better place. This gave them the opportunity then to prepare themselves for that research in a way that would allow them to feel that they could still be successful even if they ran into problems with their research.
And this chart that we're showing was an outgrowth of that work, where we charted some of the things that the kids had learned from that Kid President video and all the text that we read, to really put up in the room as a reminder of this was the way we were going to approach our Genius Hour work as we went forward, because we knew that we were going to sometimes reach roadblocks or challenges, particularly since with first graders, we were sometimes going to be in content or trying to read things that were a little challenging and would need some support. So this was a way of really getting them to focus on that.
We also then, when we were ready to begin the lessons with the students, we gave every child Post-it notes, and they were allowed to put on each Post-it note information that they like to read about, information that they like to learn. And then they were also given the opportunity for other Post-its about things that they love to do. This would give them the opportunity to begin to think about what they already like, and then continue wonderings of their own. Things that they like to learn about, whether through nonfiction or videos that we had seen in class, and then of course things that they like to do outside of the classroom. We want them to always be connecting with what is relevant to them, material that they liked to do, whether it was soccer or if they were interested in Legos, just something to connect with what they were doing.
And as we did that, we created these charts that we put up to just visually represent and allow the kids to see all those different interests that we had across the room, some of which were similar and some of which were very different, as a way of kind of sparking thoughts about what were kinds of things that you were passionate or wondered about or were interested in.
And then before the students actually wrote wonderings of their own, we had them we had a lesson on what makes a good wondering and what would be too small of a wondering. We wanted the kids to realize that they wanted to be able to research, to dig in deep to a question, and it wouldn't necessarily be something that they could answer with a simple yes or no. If a child asked, well, do elephants have trunks? That's easily answered with a simple yes or no. It needed to be a bigger question that they couldn't just type it in the search bar and find the answer immediately. Many of the questions that we wanted them to work on were questions that would take them a while to research, like how do hearts work, and why are there so many countries in the world?
And so this chart you're seeing, this is an example, actually, one of the charts that was created in the class, where we had kids brainstorm what were some things that weren't Genius Hour wonderings and what were some things that could be a Genius Hour wondering. And so that really helped the kids before we ever got into trying to have them develop their own personal wonderings, have that deeper understanding, as Tammy said, of what would be something that would be worthy of research in our Genius Hour time, and what would be something that would not be worthy. Might be something you'd want to find out the answer to, but wouldn't be something we would take our Genius Hour time for. And so this chart that we're showing is an example of, from one of our classrooms, of some of the kinds of things that kids came up with.
And Mary Alicia, when she was modeling this through a coaching for my classroom last year, had a list of questions and would ask the kids, is this a Genius Hour wondering, or is this a smaller question? And the kids could give thumbs up, thumbs down in order to have those discussions.
So after we got through, really talking about what is a genius hour, wondering what is not, we asked the kids next to think about what were their actual wonderings. What were some big ideas that they were wondering about?
Right. And we allowed them to come up with at least 2 to 3 wonderings, just in case one wondering was a little smaller, or we wanted to make sure that we could pair them up with someone else who had a similar topic that they were interested in.
Yeah, and we did that as we asked them to develop wonderings. We actually gave kids different colors write their wonderings on. So each kid would write their wondering on pink paper or green paper or whatever color they were given, so that when we went to the next step, which was trying to match kids up, we could figure out, when we were pairing kids and questions, have we made sure that everyone was represented within that process, and it made it easier to do that.
Right. And then once the students were paired up, sometimes we would find that their questions didn't match exactly. If their questions are both about space, but one is about the sun and one was about the moon, they could have a conversation about their interest and come up with a similar question.
So I'm going to show you a few examples of what some of the kinds of wonderings we had from kids were.
All right. So here, is this the first one showing up okay?
Yep.
Okay.
That went well today. So,
Hey, Shauna, hold on to that.
Okay.
Hold on to that. That's actually reflections. I'm sorry. I made a mistake.
That's okay.
We'll get to that in just a second.
All right.
So we're going to share with you just a few examples of some of the kinds of wonderings that kids came up with through that wondering process.
Right. Some of the wonderings, these are examples. I wonder how you get stronger. I wonder how do cars work? Or I wonder what your bones are made of. Or I wonder, how does a toilet work?
That's one we actually have a partnership studying this year, and it's turned out that's much more complex than you might think at first blush. And I think the teacher and the students are learning a lot in that process of trying to figure out, how does a toilet work?
And other examples were, I wonder how big is the moon and what it is made of. I wonder how your lungs get air. I wonder, how does the light work? Or how do words get started?
So we have had also sometimes kids who've had really big wonderings, or wonderings that were maybe too small, even after our work with what makes a genius hour wondering and what doesn't. And so as a part of that process, we also take kids through sorting their wonderings to kind of see what big categories do they fit into.
Right. They generally fell into these main categories. The students in first grade in particular are very interested in the solar system, animals, their bodies, and how things around them work, as well as there were some plant questions as well. This also helped us, like we had talked about a little before, that if the students had questions that fell into the same category but didn't match exactly, then they knew they at least had something in common, a place to start from, and it's usually no problem for the kids to come up with other wonderings once those conversations get started.
So we're going to show you a few examples. We're going to show you 2 slides that have some questions from 2 of the classrooms that from last year, actually. And these are some of the different kinds of wonderings that we ended up landing on that they would research.
Right. This group was from my class. How does food and water keep us healthy? Who created numbers and why do we need numbers? Why do dinosaurs go extinct, or why do planets go around the sun? My group of students came up with questions that were more science and nature oriented, whereas my colleague across the hall, who started about the same time I did, hers were more, how do things work? More engineering type of questions. How do robots work? How are plastic toys made? How do cars and buses work? It was interesting, really, to see how the same first grades were very interested in different topics. And of course, in one class, if one student says, well, how does this work? That might spread to the other kids, and they'll want, hey, yeah, that makes me think, how does this work? How does that work? Which helps build more questions for the kids to work on.
Absolutely. It was interesting because both classrooms really had the same series of lessons or very similar lessons going into the process of developing wonderings, and to see how one class leaned so much more towards science and nature and one class leaned more in terms of overall questions of the technology and how things work. That kind of organically happened in that process. There wasn't anything really different in the presentations. But as Tammy said, sometimes you also get clusters of kids that are a little bit more interested generally too in one kind of thing than another. And then sometimes ideas spread across kids as we were developing wonderings. So it was really interesting to see that, and really exciting to see the different kinds of questions that kids came up with, and really, really big questions that sometimes we would think of as something that a much older student would be studying, not necessarily a first grader.
Right. And it also, we weren't ever short on questions. As a matter of fact, as they would do their research, they would sometimes come up with other questions that we could very well have added another Genius Hour group of lessons after the first round because they had had so many questions. Once the students had their questions, the partnerships, we went into the wanting them to basically plan their question and share what they knew about those questions or information that they already had about those questions. We wanted them to write their question so that they had it planned, but also to draw a picture representation to show what they might already know about it, as well as make a list of questions or facts that they already knew about the questions. Through that process, the picture helps with students who may not yet be at a point where they're ready to write. And then if they can, for those who are writing, to be able to make that list, and this list becomes what they think they already know. We did a lesson where, so that they understood that sometimes what we think we know, we later learn that it is not. And this is an example. How does a car work? Well, some of the things they already knew quite well was that the engine gives it power. But they also had written that the trunk helps it run. And through their research, they're either able to confirm or update their thinking on what they thought they knew.
So after we give the students a chance to really take a moment to create their wonder sheet with, drawing the picture and writing what they think they know, we move on to the research stage of the process. And we have the kids research in 3 different ways across the research days. We actually research across 7 different days, give or take 1 or 2, depending on what's going on in the school schedule, and with that class, with a particular classroom. The first days we have kids research on websites. We have curated a list of kids-safe search engines and websites that are about specific topics that kids can go on to that we know are safe for first graders to be on. We've found particular websites about animals and about the human body, things that we know are common topics that show up that kids can use in addition to those kids-safe search engines. And so we take about usually 2 to 3 days researching on those websites, and that takes a lot of support. We're really walking around in that process and in all of these research days as coaches, supporting kids in the process of researching, helping them to comprehend information that may be a little out of their reach, helping them to read things that are a little confusing or maybe a little challenging, helping to explain diagrams or pictures, and then making sure that they really have a good grasp of that information before they decide to record it as a research note. We also talk in that process about how to take what we're finding and put it into our own language. We're not wanting our first graders to just hop on websites and start copying things down, which besides the plagiarism issues, generally that would mean it also might not be something they're really understanding if it's not in their own language or in their own words. So we are really through that process coaching them to a point of understanding, and then how they are recording their own information.
We had also talked about this being a wonderful time for parent volunteers to be able to come in to help with that. With so many groups, it is sometimes difficult to get to everyone, but with the parent volunteers, that's a great way to get parents involved who are able to see the process and help get to more students, particularly in the beginning. It became easier once the kids got into the process of doing it. They became more independent.
Yes. Yeah, the first day of research is especially because we hop into our Assembly page and into our websites right away as the first step. I mean, we're really walking around doing a heavy lifting at the beginning, helping kids to understand how this process works. And by day 3 of the research with websites, it looks really different. Kids are much more independent. They understand how to do the searches. They understand when they're finding something that's really so far above their head they can't access the information. And we also are supporting them sometimes in those sites and finding videos. A lot of the sites will include short videos that might be more understandable and accessible, and having them also learn the process of being able to watch a video once so that you hear all the information, and then on the second watch begin to write down some information. In addition to using websites, Symbaloo with different websites, and we also sometimes direct them to Brain Pop Junior or Brain Pop and Pebble Go, because those are subscriptions that our district happens to have. We spend the day researching on Epic, which is an online program that's free for educators and has a huge collection of text. So we create collections within Epic that kids can go to, because Epic does have books that are for younger and much older kids. And so we curate before the kids go in to do that Epic research, a set of books with maybe a video that we feel like are accessible into a collection labeled the heart or the lungs, that kids can go do research within.
And I found that Epic is a good way to differentiate then, because of the leveling of the books, that if you do have a reader who has more, who is researching or can read more difficult material, it's easier to differentiate that and provide more information for them. And someone who is a new reader, you can pick out books that are appropriate for them as well.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's also nice because those collections, once you've created them, you can keep them in your Epic account and use them from year to year. So it's a little labor intensive in the beginning to create a collection. And then afterward, it's available because there are topics that pop up very frequently, and you begin to find those. We do also have 2 to 3 days where kids are researching in text. So we have found text at the public library, own school library, and so we provide 2 or 3 texts for students to be able to look through and research and find more information beyond what they found on the websites and on Epic. And then when we can, and we're hoping to do more of this in the future, we have had kids talk to experts. And sometimes those experts are people in our building. Like we've had all those kids that are interested in health-related topics like the lungs and brain and how do you keep yourself safe. They may talk to the school nurse when she's available. We had our technology facilitator last year come down and work with a pair of kids that was learning about how computers work. She had a broken computer, just happened to have a broken computer. And so she took it apart and they got to see the inside of the computer, which was very exciting. We had a student last year who wanted to know how cars and buses work. So I took him out to talk to the bus driver. you know, and find out a little bit from a bus driver's perspective about how the buses work. So we have had different experts that have supported our work, and we know we can do more with that. We're excited about maybe tapping into some of our parent population. If we have a physician's assistant, or maybe we have a nurse in our parent group across the grade, we might be able to solicit them to come in and talk to some of our kids. So we're excited about expanding that work as well. So we're going to show you a little bit of what our research looks like as kids get underway with the process. So we've tried to make this fairly simple for kids, to make it something that feels accessible. So as they take their research notes, they have a sheet that looks like this. On the back, it's actually got a place for 6 Post-it notes. This is the front, and they are writing down their facts that they have discovered. If they are using a resource, they aren't supposed to copy something verbatim, but we do teach them that if there's a word in the text and you're putting it in your own words, but that word's still in your own words, use that resource. So you'll see some correct spelling on here for words that these kids can read, perhaps after they've been supported, but would not have been able to spell anywhere like that, you know, that looks this way. But they've used the resource they have to help them with the spellings. So we've really taught them, just like we would want them to use a word wall in the classroom and writing workshop, or to use a text when they're writing about reading. That if you're looking at a website and the word gasoline sitting right there on the website, and you're going to write a sentence that includes that, go ahead and use that text to support your spelling. So this is one version. Here's another partnership, and you'll see they've chosen a different way of recording.
Right. This helps if students are at a different level with their reading and writing, that if they need to, they can use pictures. And then again, as Mary Alicia mentioned, they can use the text to help them spell given words that they have need to label their drawings. This helps to support and scaffold their research along the way.
So as they're working through this research process, we are structuring the work that we're doing as a workshop kind of model. And so when we're doing that, we start each one of our research days with another growth mindset video, actually, that we have discussed, that we found too, because we really wanted to keep that growth mindset theme running through this work, as we knew that the kids were going to continue to find new and different challenges. For example, that group that you saw the question of about the numbers, they were having trouble finding information, and we ended up tweaking their question a little bit to when did certain numbers get invented, certain types of numbers, and they ended up finding out more about like when fractions were invented or whole numbers were invented.
Right. We eventually had our math specialists come and talk with them to help them answer some of their questions. And yes, I think, as you had mentioned, their interest with it took another turn. They were still very interested in the numbers, but as they learned more, their question evolved over time based on what they were finding and the discussion that they had with our math specialist.
And they even said it several times, like, we have a growth mindset because we're sticking with this question, even though it's challenging. And they ended up ultimately finding quite a lot of fantastic and interesting information, and things that I sometimes had to myself, is that true? I haven't heard that before. And I go look at it and discover that it was. Actually, that's happened multiple times when a kid has written a fact, and I'm thinking, is that really actually, true? Because it may be something I don't know myself personally. And then every time I've gone back to fact check the kid, it's usually been accurate. As a part of the workshop, we also then have the kids at the end of the workshop. So we'll start with a growth mindset video. We'll review what's going to happen for the day. Then there's an independent work time where we're working and coaching the partnerships. And we wrap it up at the end with a reflection piece. We use a tool, an online tool called Seesaw, that's we've actually have it on our, so you could use it on a Chromebook or some other device. And the kids are given a set of questions. Oops, let me get that. They're given a set of questions to reflect on, and we talk about what that looks like and we model this for them, but this is a refined version. We're going to share a couple of reflections in just a second where the kids don't share necessarily 2 to 4 facts, because we've really refined this process. But these are the questions that they answer at the end of each workshop. What went well today? What did you learn? Was anything tricky? And what is your plan for next time? And we've really talked to the kids about how to reflect on their work, and that this is also helping them to prepare for the next week. Doing that reflection helps them to think about what they've done and what their next steps might be. So we're going to show a couple of short reflection videos that are from the kids that we've done this with over the last couple of years.
Okay, so let's see. Can you see the video right now?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, I will play it. Here we go.
What went well today? So, we learned some information in the books. What did you learn? We learned that, like, there's something in, like, from your neck. There's something that goes up into your throat, and half of the air goes into one lung, and the other half goes to the other lung. Was anything tricky? Well, yeah, we were reading a book about it, and then Epic, and it was so tiny, like this small. And then the teacher told us to zoom up. Nah, we didn't even know that we could zoom up. Okay. What is your plan for next time? You have to say it. Our plan for next time is right when we're in the book. We'll write down what we learned right away.
All right, how did that go with the video? The
It was
first one?
fine.
Okay, so you want me to pull up the next one now?
Sure. Let's see the next one. It's a little different.
So cute.
What went well today? We searched a lot of information about brains. What did you learn? So I learned that the brain controls the side. The right side controls the left side of your brain, and the left side controls the right side of your brain. What was anything tricky? Yeah, there's something tricky. We couldn't log in very easily. What is your plan for next time? Oh, my plan for next time is to search brains, and also I want to learn about what your brain looks like in real life. Okay. Bye.
So you can see from those different reflections that the kids are reflecting on kind of sometimes challenges with technology or challenges with text, or they might be reflecting on what were their challenges working with each other sometimes. And are we seeing, Sean, are you hearing us? I'm not seeing us.
I am hearing you. Yep, there you go.
Okay. And so we're definitely seeing all different kinds of challenges, and then, but by them recording about it in Seesaw, it gives us a chance to also listen in to see what the kids have said about what their challenges are, and then go back and support them. Or as you heard with that one fact, that child has a really pretty good understanding of that the brain is connected somehow to the left and the right side, but it seemed more like the child was saying the left side controls the brain, and so it gave us a chance to make sure that we go back and ensure that they really are understanding that fact in the way that it's meant, in the way that it happens in reality. And that actually was true when we checked in with that child. I'm going to show you some of our, there we are. As we get ready to present, projects. So after we go through those research days, we have the kids prepare a project. Now, this is a formal process that we're taking kids through. It could be much more informal. It could have been taking sticky notes and putting them on a poster and sharing their information. This is certainly something where there's a wide range of how this could look or happen. But we've chosen to have kids create a project, and also, so we give them a choice. They can create either a book or a poster. And then we give them some tips about how to make that happen. We also take them through the process of going to a makerspace to create a representational object that shows something about what they've researched. And we also have them create a green screen video after they finish that, where they get to share some information about, share what they have created and share their representational objects. I'm going to show you some of what that looks like. Whoops. So this is a child who's in process. They've taken their Post-it notes, they've put it onto paper and getting ready to create their book. Then we have them transfer their Post-it notes over the picture box, and then they copy them, and then they'll create a picture to go along with that as well after they've had a chance to copy their Post-it notes. We talk about, trying to make this look like first grade writing, trying to, be a little neat, think about our periods and capitals, pull a little bit of our other kinds of work into this that we're working on in writing workshop as well. And so then once they've had a chance to do that, we're just going to share a few of the books, so they were easier to show in this format. So here's one where the partnerships created a book about bones, and you can see one of the pages that they've created. And so you can see that they're also labeling their pictures like we would in nonfiction texts, and making them look pretty nice so others could see them. Here's one about stars. Very similar. And then here is one about the moon. And so that's, once kids have gone through that process, then we have them plan to make something in our makerspace. And so this is two different sets of plans for kids that were making something in the makerspace. They got to look at the different materials that were in the makerspace that were available to them. They got to work with their partner and decide what were they going to make, what was it going to look like.
Right. They had a very good time with this. They were so engaged in it because they were so proud of what they had created with their books or their posters. They were thrilled with being given the task of being able to teach someone else about what they had learned, and then to be able to make the project, to make this object to represent what they had learned, was a culminating activity that further engaged the children.
Here's an example of something that was created in the makerspace. These kids were partnership working on soap and does it hurt or help you, which was an interesting topic. They've created at the bottom, the part with the colorful tape is the soap dispenser, and you'll see the rod that's actually used to pull out the soap. There's little bits of cloth in there, and they said that the old iPad box that's at the top, that was what they were envisioning was where the extra soap or the would come down from to go into the soap container. So we're going to show you an example of the green screen video that this is a couple of boys. We pulled one intentionally that's fantastic and not perfect. So so you can see what it looks like when the kids create a green screen video and share their work. And so Shauna, she's probably trying to get that up.
We learned about.
All right. Can you see that now or no?
We can't see it. We can hear it, but not see it.
Okay, hold on just a sec. Let me try it one more time. This is really cute, so people need to wait until I can get this going. It's so adorable. All right, let me try this again.
Hi, our names are Abel and Zach.
Is that working?
We learned about the brain. Our top 10 facts are your brain works at night. Brain sends messages to your the brain sends messages through the whole spinal cord. Oh wait, it's not pictures. There are 2 sides of the brain. And learning, water, exercise, and food keep your brain healthy. One part of your brain is laughter, and a different part of is for thinking. Eat nuts, fish, and chicken to keep our brains healthy. Eat breakfast for energy. Glial cells inside your body are pinkish whitish. The food has 3 main cerebellum, 2 cerebellum, 3 brainstem. Good. We make a big brain, and me and Cupid did it, and Zach did it. And this is like some brain pinkish whitish. We used it as a pinkish whitish thing. And there's like people that are saying about the brainstem, and I'm getting closer. Like you see this one, I think here, and in this guy's name, I think. Yeah, and look, see, he says that they're just saying about them, and we made a big brain. And look, it's up here. 3 main parts. Goodbye. Bye. See you later.
Oh my gosh, I can't even.
And that looks a lot like what they look like. We had them share 10 top 10 facts. We didn't want our videos to be so long that they were too overwhelming to watch and just became uninteresting. We wanted them to have a chance to share what they made in the makerspace. And so in that process, they were able to do both of those things. And then we had a green screen video that could be shared with parents or other classes.
Right. And we also shared those green screen videos with their classmates so that they were given the opportunity to have an audience here at school.
So one of the things we had questions about with Genius Hour was, well, this just seems so big, you know, what are you really covering? And so we really took a minute and at one point and checked in on everything that we were covering across Genius Hour.
Right. Sometimes there would be a little guilt. Oh, I'm leaving out literacy, whether it be reading or writing. And after we sat down together and found all the ways that Genius Hour tied in to reading and writing, I could relieve myself of not of the guilt and be able to say, look at everything we're covering in just this one session. So
So these slides show our North Carolina standards. They are Common Core based, but they are officially North Carolina standards at this point, but they would be very similar to any state that is either using Common Core or has standards that have been adapted or based on Common Core. So you can see all of these reading standards. We've got quite a few writing standards, speaking and listening standards, and then we went in and discovered that our state technology standards also had what were being covered as a part of this as well. We want to talk for just a minute, too, about when we moved this into kindergarten. And this is just, we really just are piloting this work. So we knew that the larger way we were doing research with first graders would be, it requires already some heavy lifting. So we wanted to make this be something that was accessible to kindergartners. So instead of creating open-ended wonderings, we're really doing a more of an inquiry circle or inquiry partnership kind of thing with our kindergartners and calling it Genius Partnerships. So this is just an example in a classroom that tried this out with where kids had animals to choose from. They got to put their name by a couple different animals. So they had open-ended and they had choice within that. We provided texts from the library that had really clear pictures, or texts from our book room that we felt like were fairly accessible, and also some epic work. So this is just some examples of the kinds of things our kindergartners created as a part of that process. We did wow posters. So here's one about pigs. They said things like, pigs get tagged. They discovered that in the picture, and all different kinds of facts they learned. These are about fish, and you see they have a skeleton, they have scales, they learned that they swim and that they can swim with other fish. This one is about kittens and how they can play rough or get milk from their mom. And the one at the bottom is one of the wows that was discovered about dogs, that dogs can help a person cross the road. So they learned, and the dog partnership saw a text where a person was being walked across the street by a guide dog. And so we talked about that, and they were able to record this fact. Here, we've also expanded it into second grade, or working on expanding it into second grade, and creating resources to challenge them with some focus on things like being more specific on what are facts that really answer our question versus what are fun facts, or when you're getting to talk to an expert, thinking about preparing a research sheet, a preparation sheet where you develop questions. These are some quotes from our students. And you can see that the kids have truly loved this. We hear about it all the time.
They really did. One of our students, the one in particular who had the question about soap, continued even at the end of Genius Hour. Every time he saw Mary Alicia in the hall, he had a new fact about soap or even a new question.
This is just a quick picture that we had from a kid at the very end of the year. She got to write her name, and she was asked to just copy her hand. And then she put in here that she liked doing Genius Hour, and that's what we heard over and over for students. So we also here have just wanted to give you our Google Doc that you can go and find all of our resources that we've created. You can look at our slide presentations. Everything that we've used is available, or that we're developing is available there. If you want to, you can follow me on Twitter, or here's also our email addresses if you'd like to email and ask for any additional information.
All right, Mary Alicia and Tammy, thank you so much. That was amazing.
Thank you
for having us.
So much good stuff. Oh my gosh. Because we're just a couple minutes over, I'm gonna just pull up this. Hopefully you can see our session 4 workshops are coming up at 2 p.m. EST, and we have a lot to choose from. We have Disrupt Writing to Center Students, Phonological Awareness, a Foundation for Strong Readers and Writers, ESPN, PBS NewsHour, and Cable News, Frameworks for Summary, Analysis, and Essays. And then our last session 4 workshop today is Using Tech Tools to Formatively Assess in Readers Workshop. Woo! Those are
great
big titles. Yes. So thank you so much. And again, that was a wonderful session. We really appreciate the both of you presenting with us at the Ed Collab gathering today, and enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you.